Hi folks, welcome back. This is video 4. This will be the final video in this little mini series that I've put together on some strategies we can use on the Liquid Loans protocol. Like I've said in the previous videos, if you haven't gone and watched the first video, you probably should, because it basically steps through the low, medium and high risk strategies. I don't actually do any walkthroughs, but we just talk about each strategy, which is essentially what you're seeing on the screen now. This is the slide for the high risk strategy, but I covered them all in the first video just as an explainer, and then the subsequent videos actually go into the how to do it sort of thing. Not too much detail, but just a quick step through on, okay, this is just the general gist of each strategy. How you choose to implement them, totally up to your personal circumstances and your risk tolerance levels and things like that. So always comes with that proviso. You make your own decisions here. This is just a little bit of guidance to understand some of the possible ways in which you can use the protocol. So let's jump straight into it. Like always, what we first are going to do is just get some pulse into a vault. But we're going to do it in a very particular way in this instance because this is a high risk strategy. So as it says on the screen, we need to deposit some pulse into a vault with a healthy collateral ratio based on our risk tolerance. Now, this particular strategy exposes us heavily to the USD price volatility of pulse. So when we set up our collateral ratios, we need to be have massive buffers there, because this asset can spin on a dime. And although a lot of times you might get wicks and stuff, that shouldn't affect you, but if it trends down over a period of time, you need to have time to be able to react to it. And this is not a strategy where you walk away and forget it. This is an active strategy, active more than any of them. They're all active, but this one is much more active just in the way it's implemented and the risks associated with it. So we're going to pop in some pulse into a vault, and we're going to mint some USDL at a really safe collateral ratio. And then we're going to swap that USDL for pulse. And then we'll come back and we'll have a bit of a chat about this, all right? So you'll understand what we're doing. So first of all, let's just kick it off and we'll get some pulse into a vault. Now, we're going to want to put more than we have done for the last couple of strategies. The other couple of strategies, there was always very clear exit paths where we were mitigating our exposure to the USD price of the assets. This one, where we've got to be a lot more careful. So let's chuck in, I'm going to put in, what do we got? Let's put in 200,000 pulse, and in this instance that is going to allow us to borrow $254,000, 254,000 USDL. Now that keeps us at 150% collateral ratio, which is way too risky for this strategy. Maybe over time, when we get as much liquidity as Ethereum, we can be a little bit more risky. But for now, that is just way too much risk. So we really need to be dropping a couple of zeros off of this. So let's go. To me, that's beautiful. That's really safe. And you'll understand what I mean when we do this. Now, you could go more than that. Like, what I think the minimum you'd probably want is 900 to 1,000. That would be pretty safe. So if you wanted to, you would be, let's see if we chuck a 3 on that. Oh, that's getting up there, maybe a 4. That's a bit risky. So sort of 3, like around those sorts of figures, you're getting up in some pretty safe zones. But I'm going to be super conservative. I'm going to go with a 25,000. Actually, no, I'm going to change that. Let's go. Let's get it where we want. 30, what did I say, about 35, I think. Okay, 38. And the reason why I'm doing that, so just so this is an easier number for us to remember, so it's around about the 1,000 mark on our collateral ratio, which I think is the minimum if you're going to do this strategy. So we're going to deposit our pulse, rip out a whole bunch of USDL. Let's do that now. So remember that collateral ratio of about 1,000 we set up. So whilst that's doing that, we'll revisit our slide. So we said we will mint our USDL at a high collateral ratio, which we've done. And once we've got that USDL, we're going to swap that for pulse. Okay, because that's what this strategy is. It's about growing. It's an aggressive growth strategy to get more pulse. So we started off with, let's go back and have a look. So let's say we start off with 200,000 pulse. That's what we allocated for this strategy. And instantly what we're going to do is take our 38,000 USDL. We're going to buy pulse off the market. So this is really important. So to understand, a while back we were talking about how price positive this could be for pulse. Imagine if everyone started doing something like this. We would end up with the price of pulse getting quite a good boost up. So let's change this to pulse. Sorry, click that around. What did I say we had? 38, I think it was 38,000. Yep, so 38,000 is what we would have had in our wallet. So let's go. So that is going to get us another 20,000 pulse. Pulse is just hideously expensive on the test network, but it'll be enough to serve a demonstration. So let's enable this. I'll put in 8,000. Let's approve that. So we're just approving our USDL spend. And once that comes through, we will purchase our pulse. And what we're going to do is with the pulse that we purchase, we're going to deposit that back into the vault. So it does a couple of things for us. A, gets us more exposure to pulse. Okay, looks like that's just confirmed. So we've got some extra, oh no, we've got to swap now. Cool. So we've got some extra pulse. So we've actually grown. We started off with 200,000. Now we've got 200 and, what did we say? 225 or something like that, I think was what we ended up with. Let me just check what our there was a swap there. That was have we got it there? I'm blind, can't see it. I think it was about 28 or something. I can't remember now. Let me just have a quick look. Let me have a quick look. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I had the right number so that it reflects properly when we deposit it back. Okay, so we said we were going to deposit the pulse that we just got back into the vault. So let's go ahead and we will deposit. I said it was 20,216. Okay, we don't want to borrow any extra USDL. Okay, so we're just going to deposit that, and instantly you can see it's improved our collateral ratio. So we've gone up an extra 100% on our collateral ratio. It started off at about 1,000. So that's the beauty of this strategy, is it does actually make our vault a little bit more robust because we are adding pulse to the vault. It's a double-edged sword, but let's go with that for now. So we let's confirm this. Okay, so whilst that's doing that, so we said we'd deposit our pulse into the vault, and now this bit we can't really perform now, so we'll just have to have a chat about that so we understand what's actually happening. So we've just done steps 2 to 4, which was mint USDL, swap USDLs for pulse, deposit it into the vault, which is what we've done. So we've now grown our bag of pulse by about 10%. Okay, so we've kept it pretty nice. We've kept it to 1,000 collateral ratio. It allows us to grow it by 10%, which was what the original haunted strategy was all about. So if you want to go back and have a look at that, you can. Now, what do we do from here? Let's first of all understand the risks we've got here. So we've got a risk here where we've got a total debt of 38,000 USDL. We've got to cover that debt if we want to keep our Pulse safe. So if the price of Pulse dips, so let's just say it drops by 50% and now we're down to 500% collateral ratio. Still not too bad, still pretty healthy, but we'd be getting a little bit nervous because we've got to cover $38,000 worth of debt. And the worst thing you'd want to have happen is, because we no longer have this, we've spent that on the Pulse. That's the risk in this strategy, is we no longer have that sitting available in another asset or in USDL that we can actually come and pay back the loan. So that's the risk on this strategy, and that's why it's in the high risk grade, is if we need to pay that back, we've got to get it from our original Pulse. So we've got it nowhere else, unless you can find another source to pay it back and make sure your collateral's not at risk. That's your exposure. Okay, that's why you only do this one with a portion of your bag, because you can blow up this vault. So if the price, let's say the worst happened and the price kept going down and it dropped by 90%, then we would be in a situation where we need to, our vault's about to get liquidated. And unless we can pay out this debt, our Pulse is going to get taken. It will get given to the people in the stability pool. That's the way the protocol works. So that's the risk of this strategy. But as long as you monitor these ratios, you don't get too greedy, because what we're looking to do is we want to see the value of our Pulse. So we're essentially long Pulse. We want to see the value of our Pulse go up over time. So if the value of our Pulse goes up 10%, then our collateral ratio looks a lot healthier, because the value of our Pulse, which is which is the collateral for our loan, has gotten more valuable. So therefore, this gets healthier. So the aim of this strategy is to, when price in US dollar terms of Pulse moves up to a level where it goes up and then it stabilizes, then you can take another nibble and you can withdraw, you can extract some more value. So you'll be able to, you're not going to put any more Pulse in, but you'll be able to extract, let's say, another $5,000. So if we do that, we extract another $5,000 and you can see our collateral ratios dipped again because price hasn't gone up. So we'd be expecting price to go up. And then when we take a nibble, we keep this at 1,000%. So we extract some more USDL. So let's go do that. So we're pretending that the price has gone up a little bit. So we've been able to extract a little bit more value out of our vault, keep our collateral ratio safe, and we're going to recycle that same principle. So once that processes, we're going to go back to Pulse X, and we're going to swap that USDL for Pulse. Okay, so that's just confirmed. We extracted 5,000 more in value. That's going to get us 2,659. Okay, why is this not letting me do that? That's a bit weird. Come on, wake up. Again, that's better. Once again, we'll enable this. So just approving our spend again. So we're just basically in this phase here where we've, after 1% of price growth in Pulse, let's say 10%, we're going to repeat steps 2 to 4. So we're going to mint more USDL, swap it for Pulse, deposit it back in the vault. Okay, it's doing its thing. And what you would like to see is if price has gone up, so our collateral ratio has increased and it's looking healthier, we've extracted some out, maybe not quite down to the 1,000 level. You'd want to be trying to build in buffers, but depends on how aggressive you're being. So once again, we extract out some USTL, buy more pulse, put it back in there. That improves our collateral ratio. So, okay, so we said I think it's about 5,600 and something, wasn't it? Can't remember now. I don't know if it's still on there. Well, let's see, we said 5,000. So there we go. 2,659 was what we got. It was way off. 2,659. But we're not going to draw out any more USDL because that's not the phase we're in. We're in depositing here. And once we deposit this, we should get our collateral ratio back up again. I can go up as high. And that's only because we're not seeing the price of pulse increase whilst we're doing this exercise. Let's have a look. So once that approves, we should see. Cool. All right. So now our collateral ratio, not quite back up to the 1,000 mark, but you could understand that if we were getting price appreciation on our pulse, that would be going up. What you can see though is we have increased our overall pulse holdings. So we've built in a little bit of leverage in that we've extracted some existing value and gone and brought more pulse. So we've, instead of holding 200, we're now holding 220. And you go, great, this is like a money printing machine. Yeah, but it comes with a lot of risk. So you can keep recycling that. And I think you can get up to as 10 or 11x by doing that. But you are extremely risky at that point where if there's any price movement, you're going to get liquidated because you've leveraged up so much. So that's why we're keeping our collateral ratios in acceptable levels so that we can withstand like a 90-odd% dip in the price without sweating. Now, would I like to see that? Hell no, that'd be pretty hard to watch and it'd be very nerve-wracking where you could potentially blow up your whole bag of pulse. So understand the risk with this because the only way we can unwind it is paying back that debt. Okay, so if we, ideally, what the long-term scenario for this would be is you set this up and you do it in a safe fashion and you can do it for many, many years because there's no interest payable on this debt. So imagine if you could sit through, if you'd done this with ETH at the very beginning and you sat through 2 cycles. So yeah, you had to sit down through all the drawdowns, but you'd done it in a way where your collateral ratio allowed that and you built your bag up. So every time ETH went up 10%, you added to your bag over the course of 5 years, 6 years. How much extra Ethereum would have you accrued along the way? And what would that be worth now? Okay? And the end game here is to grow your pulse bag and let it multiply in value. And then, if you want, clear the debt. Or if you really wanted, you could just extract all the value out of it up to the point where it got liquidated or whatever. You can play the strategy however you like there, but ultimately if you could keep extracting value for living off of, you could live off that forever, just let the value of it keep going up. Gets to that point where you reach that, I guess, that escape velocity where you don't need to extract much out, but it keeps growing at a rate where you're no longer having to keep leveraging up. Or you grow it to a point where you can actually take a portion of this off the table and pay down your debt, free and clear, you own the rest of the pulse and you're not at any liquidation risk then. So it's a riskier strategy. Don't do it with your whole bag. Ease into this. Have fun with it, but do it safely. It's a very powerful strategy. And you can imagine what that would do to the price of pulse if there's 10,000 participants doing something like this. It's very price positive for pulse. Let's just have a quick look what I've missed. So we've said it's a growth opportunity, so we'll be continuing to hold pulse. So we're very long pulse in this instance. So we're actually building in some leverage, so we're extremely long pulse. You'll be fully exposed to the USD price movements of pulse. I think we've covered that to the point where if you take too much risk, you can lose the pulse in your volt. So it definitely works well in a bull trending market, and if you build in enough collateral ratio, you can withstand some dips along the way. You'd probably want to wind back a little bit if you knew we were coming into a bear market. Depending on where your collateral ratios are, if you think you can withstand a 90% dip or whatever, fine, but you might want to just wind it in a little bit. This is very true. It's a very active strategy, so you're not just going to walk away and leave this one. You'd want price alerts and all sorts set up and be keeping a good eye on it, because that's how you increase the exposure in a safe way, is when the price goes up, you add to your bag. So that's part of the strategy. But also if the price dips, you want to be able to do something. So you can adjust the risk by how often you ratchet up, what sort of collateral ratios you use. You're sort of seeing some of the effects there, so you can play around with that. Pretty sure there's some spreadsheets on the internet kicking around by Haunted where you can plug in different figures. And let me just reiterate this. You shouldn't be doing this with your core holding. Like, this should be a bit you segment off. You can see the power of it. If you use a small amount and you get it right, it is very, very powerful. But if you use the whole lot and you get it wrong, yeah, it's not great. Okay, I think we might wrap this one up there. What are we at? It's about 22 minutes. That's pretty good. I like to keep them around 20, 25 minutes. I think we've covered the strategy. Hopefully you can see how it works for you. Like I said, if this is something you're more interested in, get on testnet and play around with it. Do a bit of fiddling around like we've just done so you understand the dynamics behind it. Dig out those spreadsheets that explain the risk and let you plug in the figures. Also let you see what this strategy can possibly do. It's pretty bonkers, but let's temper that with some expectations of there is quite a lot of risk involved in this. So just understand that's why it sits up on the high risk play. But yeah, get out there and have a crack. And like I said, this is the final video for this series. So I'll finish up on this slide, which basically just says I've presented 3 strategies. We've looked at different levels of risk and how we can plug in different components of the ecosystem, not just liquid loans, but the Pulse Chain ecosystem. And that's touching on the tip of the iceberg. We all know how many protocols have launched and the different yield capacities they've all got and the way they work in different ways and support Hex or Pulse or whatever. So many different scenarios here that I'm pretty sure you can find a way to use the Liquid Loans protocol and implement that in some strategy on whatever your favorite ticker is. Okay, so some really cool tools here. Just do it safely. Share your results. Share with other people what you've managed to figure out and what strategies you've got, because there's some pretty cool stuff kicking around. That's it for me for now. I hope that little mini series on some strategies for liquid loans was useful. If it was, hit me up. Even give me a little tickle on the subscribe button. I don't get on this channel very often, so if you give me a bit more encouragement, I'll do some more videos. Okay guys, bye for now.